So last month I did a reread of The Lord of the Rings, and I happened to be doing that reread at the same time as I'm doing a reread of the Harry Potter series. And it was really fun reading them together because I noticed a ton of similarities between the two. And while I didn't go into my reread planning for that, I decided it might be fun to kind of chat about some of the things that I noticed where the two series are quite similar. I should probably preface this, because it's the internet, by saying that I don't think that there's anything wrong with taking inspiration from a classic to build up your own story. Especially Lord of the Rings, tons of authors and great series have done that, so I think it's fine. And also I love both of these series, so I'm just talking about similarities. But anyway, I want to start off the video talking about the main big bads, because I feel like that's where the most similarities come in. We have Voldemort and Sauron, a Dark Lord who once had extreme power but lost it all and currently resides in spirit form until he can be brought back. At least at the beginning of Harry Potter, he resides in spirit form. And yeah, they have really similar opening presences. Also, they're both called the Dark Lord, and in both series, the creatures and humans around them refuse to call them by their name for fear of the name itself. In both series, the Dark Lord puts a piece of himself into an object, and this helps him to transcend death. And in both series, we need to destroy said object in order to be able to kill the Dark Lord. We can't kill him without killing the object, destroying the object first. Now, with Sauron, the object we're trying to destroy is the One Ring, and in the Harry Potter series we have 7 Horcruxes, one of which is a ring, but the one of them that holds the most similarity is probably going to be the locket, because that's the one that is worn around the protagonist's neck and will influence and even change the personality of whoever is wearing it at the time. Also, the Dark Lord has a great amount of influence on the people that are surrounded by the object that contains a bit of himself in it. Then we have Frodo and Harry. Now, the similarities are much smaller between these two. They're both orphaned and living with their uncles, and we're introduced to them on their birthdays. For Frodo, it was age 33. For Harry, it was age 11. And of course, Harry has his infamous scar on his forehead that allows him to have a connection with the Dark Lord and can even be influenced by said connection. And every time Voldemort comes near him or is experiencing some extreme emotion, Harry experiences pain through that scar. Frodo receives a scar from an attack from a ring wraith who is under the control and influence of the Dark Lord Sauron. This attack leaves Frodo with a scar, and this scar hurts him every time he is close to a ring wraith. Those are the big ones. Then we have a bunch of smaller characters and scenes that I thought were really interesting. Of course, you have Aragog and Shelob, I don't actually know how to pronounce that, who are giant spiders that attack the protagonist at some point. We have Old Man Willow and the Whomping Willow, both of which are large, somewhat animate trees that attack our protagonist and are quite the hindrance. We have the Dead Marshes and the Cave, both of which have dead people, bodies floating in the water. Gandalf and Dumbledore are an obvious similarity. They're both described very similar in their physical appearance. They both act as a sort of mentor and guide for our protagonist. They're both written to be very kindly older men who can get pretty intense when they're faced with opposition, and they both happen to be the most powerful wizards around. Longbottom Leaf is something that they smoke quite a bit in the Lord of the Rings, and Neville Longbottom happens to be super great at herbology. It's a silly one, but it was funny. The Mirror of Galadriel is described as a basin of silver, wide and shallow. And this is something that you can look into and see bits of your past, of your future, your fortune. And the pensive is a basin of memories that you can extract as a silver line and put it in there, and you can look in it and see a more accurate representation of memories. So not super similar, but pretty similar. Dobby and Smeagol are both tortured yet sympathetic bald creatures that are both a help and a hindrance to our main characters, and they both speak of themselves in the third person all the time. Merry and Pippin, Fred and George, they're both a mischievous comedic duo that get into shenanigans such as fireworks. It's not a huge similarity, but It's fun. The Dementors and the Ringwraiths are obviously really similar in their physical description, and they both have the ability to strongly affect your soul. And the last one, and the one that I probably enjoy the most of all these little similarities, are Wormtail and Wormtongue. They both betray someone very close to them to the Dark Lord, and they both follow the Dark Lord out of fear and cowardice as opposed to an actual devotion to the cause. There's also a scene in both books that is so similar. I'm gonna forget the details now because, again, I didn't read the books with the intention of this video, so I didn't write these details down as I was reading it. But there's a scene where I believe it's Aragorn and Gandalf that are confronting Wormtongue, and it is so similar to the scene where Lupin and Sirius are confronting Wormtail in the Whomping Willow. The way the two lay into the worm fella in both books, the things that they say are so similar. It's not line for line or anything extreme like that. It's just that the way it's all structured and the things that they say to them are really, really alike. That was actually something that I noticed a lot in this reread as well, is how similar certain scenes and conversations were throughout the books. And again, I didn't do this reread anticipating this video, so I didn't write these scenes down, but there were several things where I saw parallels and then I watched scenes play out that were super similar, and it was so fun to see. I also noticed with The Lord of the Rings, it was originally written as one book, originally published as 6. Now we often see it published as 3. But no matter what versions you have, right here, no matter what versions you have of The Lord of the Rings, it still splits it up into 6 books. So The Fellowship has books 1 and 2 in it, The Two Towers have books 3 and 4 in it, and The Return of the King have books 5 and 6. So no matter what version you have, it's still split up into 6 books in one way or another. And it was so cool because there were several scenes that were really similar, like the one with Wormtail and Wormtongue being confronted, that happened in the same book. So it happens in book 3 in The Two Towers, and it happens in book 3 of Harry Potter, which is just a funny, massive coincidence. The books are obviously really different from each other. And again, I don't know if J.K. Rowling intentionally took inspiration from The Lord of the Rings. I know she says she didn't, so, you know, we can trust that if we want to. Regardless, I don't really think it matters because, again, I don't think it's a big deal to be strongly inspired by another series as you create your own world, especially one as iconic as The Lord of the Rings. But I do think that it's really fun to discuss. There were a ton more that I noticed while I was doing my reread that I didn't write down, and now I'm frustrated at myself, but I also didn't anticipate this video. So maybe when I do my next reread of The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, I might try to plan them together again, and I might actually plan out this video a little bit better and have even more information for you. But those are the ones that I wrote down after the fact when I decided to discuss it with you guys. I'm really curious if there are ones that I missed that you guys noticed, if you're fans of both of the series, or if you maybe didn't see some of these similarities and some of them were surprising to you. I'd love to chat about it more in the comments. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.